I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and please hit like. And what do I have here? I have a plate for a Bun Special pocket watch. And what I'm going to do is try to size a jewel for replacement. Alright, the jewel being replaced is this jewel right here. And the problem with this jewel is it has a crack on this side. The crack goes from this side across. It doesn't cross the jewel hole, but eventually this jewel will fall apart. So the first thing we're going to try to do is source the jewel, but if we can't source the jewel, we actually have to measure the jewel and measure the pivot, the hole size of the jewel. So we want the diameter and the hole size in case we have to make a new setting. If we have to make a new setting, then we need to know the correct jewel to put in here, and the rest of it can be made from the sample. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick a pin gauge and see if this is the right size for the pin gauge. So these are my pin gauges here, and there's a rumor out there that this might be a 0.24. So I have to actually stick this in to the hole and then determine whether it's the proper fit. Now if I put that in just like this, it does stand up. It stands up and leans, which means there is some end shake, or side shake on that, which is good. So I want it to be able to lean just a bit, right, when I stand it up on this. So I'm going to look under a microscope and make sure that's the right size. So I tried the 24, it fit nice. There's a little bit of side shake as I showed, as it leaned over about 15 degrees. And then I tried a 26, and a 26 was way too tight, so it's obviously a 24. Now I'm going to see if I can somehow measure the diameter of this. Now the problem I have is that there's burnishing on here, so I have to measure the diameter and then account for some of the burnishing. So just by maybe 0.05 of a millimeter for the burnishing in the diameter. So I'm going to see if I can measure the diameter of this of the jewel. Now I'm going to use a microscope measuring device here to see if I can measure the diameter here of the jewel setting. This is a really tricky thing to do. It does have it does go to 0.01 millimeters, I believe, and you can't really see the dashes or the grades or gradients on this. You can only see them under a microscope. So I'm going to use my microscope. I'm going to place this over the top and see if I can estimate the jewel diameter. So I would say I'm looking at 1.8. So I put the scale over the top, and then I just ride it along. It's hard to show you here, but I start at 0, and 0, this is a jewel here. 0 would be here, somewhere here, and I measure the full diameter of this whole setting, and that full diameter of the setting came in at 2.3, and I measure the inside diameter of this, and it was 1.8 millimeters, so 1.8 millimeters. And so if I'm going to be safe here and find the right jewel, the jewel itself has to be likely between 1.6 and 1.8, because if it's going to be remade, you can burnish a bit more material over it, but if you pick a jewel that's too big, it won't fit in the new setting. So I'm looking at 1.6 to 1.8 millimeters in diameter. So we're going to go hunting for the appropriate jewel. The thickness, it's almost impossible for me to measure the thickness of this. I'd have to put some crazy glue on the flat part of the jewel on this side, and then push it through and hope the jewel didn't fall apart. But generally I should be okay. So I'm looking at a hole of 0.24 and a diameter of 1.6 to 1.6 to 1.7, somewhere in there. And just because I love drawing diagrams, we'll say this is the jewel setting here. I like Leonardo da Vinci, and I can draw a perfect circle. And this is the top of the jewel, and this is the inside. and then we have the hole. So the hole is, I'm going to do this upside down, so 0.24 for the hole. Hopefully you can read numbers upside down. And then from the edge right here, actually from this edge to the other edge here, I've got about 2.3, and my drawing is not to scale, by the way. And then this part here, from here to here, shows up as around 1.8. And I'm thinking, because this is the top of the jewel, it's going to end up on the other side a bit more open like that. And you want enough for the burnishing material. So if this is 1.8, I might be able to go a little bit bigger on this side. So, because I did measure the top part and not the bottom part, and the top part only exposes a bit of the jewel. As long as I'm inside to 2.3, if I took that down to 2 or 1.9, I still have enough material on the other side to burnish it over the jewel. So let me look for something, say 1.9 or 2.0, somewhere in there. I had it backwards before, so I'm going to look for that size jewel. So here I've got some cases with jewels in them, so I'll look at this one here. These are Seats jewels, and what I really prefer is a jewel that looks kind of like this. It goes like this. There's an opening and then a small edge, and it's kind of rounded a bit, domed a bit, and goes down like that. There's the hole for the jewel, and that way when it's tucked into the setting, the burnishing, let me get another pen so I can show you this a little clearer. So move my camera in a bit and grab my red pen. There we go, live action. So the burnishing material lip would come over the top like that on both sides, and then the jewel setting itself would be level with that, so you'd have it like this, and then come up like this, and then it would end somewhere around there. So again, same thing here. The material would be like this on the setting, go out like this, and end somewhere around there. And so you end up cutting a hole that looks like a cup, and when you put the jewel into the cup, you're able to burnish over the top. Now I know for a fact, once you burnish over the top, you always have additional material here and here, and you end up pressing that or graving that material down to where the burnishing is, so the whole thing ends up being kind of flat. And then where this sticks out, it doesn't have to be at this point. It could be at this point here, it could be at this point, but you want it to look good, so you'd want it to look somewhat like the other jewel. So, and usually it's kind of a little less than or a little more than halfway through. So the distance here, I guess, like this to this, cutting it through. So I'd say a third of the way in from this side, right, and a third from that side. So this is what I'm looking for, but I don't know whether I'll have one of these jewels like this, rounded. If I don't, and I end up with a jewel that is perfect, functionally, the shaft or the pivot goes through like that, like this, and the jewel, the wheel, rides like this, and the friction is actually at this point right here. Is this point and this point, so the jewel is actually touching the this shaft, this part of the actual wheel. So I don't know if you're arbor or whatever you want to call it, but anyway, it's the shaft of the, and down here is the gear. This is the gear with its teeth and everything else, right? So it's touching right there. So functionally, as long as it's flat and I've got the jewel in, it'll work perfect. From a cosmetic perspective, I want to make sure that I'd like this to be a little bit rounded, but because of the size of these jewels and these movements, no one is going to notice when they look in the hole that the jewel's not a bit domed. So I'm good with that. So let me just see if I can find the right jewel. So what I'm looking for is 24 on one side and something smaller than, so looking for 24 2 would be nice. I'm not sure if this 24-120 I think is too small. So I'm looking for a 24 and a bigger number, if that in fact is correct. But what I'll do is I'll put this, there's a 24-130 here. And again, I'm assuming that my measurement here is accurate. It seems to be 24-180, although that seems to be pretty big. So something smaller might work. And I'm looking for the 24s here. I got nothing in here. I think these are all dead in the water. I don't think there's any jewels in here. I just threw those in because I think the jewels for my collection here are all along the side here. So a 24, and this is what this is setting like this, convex holes, but this is for balance staffs. So I'd want something that's not like more like this, that has an oil cup in the top, but is a bit domed, but has an oil cap on the top. So that I hope I can find. So let me look at the jewels here. Some of these are pretty big. So what I'm going to do is measure. I'm going to grab like a 24-120, and I got a few of those, and see how small that is compared to the existing jewel. And the way I do that is I got to just take one of these jewels out, spill it out, and then throw it under the microscope and see what she looks like. So if I take one of these jewels and I just lay it down on here, I know just by looking at the jewel size here, I know these jewels are way too small. Yeah, need to be a bit bigger than this. And this was a 24-120. So I think that my initial measurements were a bit better. It's not too far off though, because maybe my measurements I made with that glass kind of micrometer reading device was a bit off. So these jewels are gold, Jerry, so I want to put these back in place. I also have another tray of jewels I can go to if I need to. I think I may have flung one. I'm not absolutely sure if I flung one or not. I think it went in here. So that's the 120. There's 26s here, but that's way too. There's a 24-180, so that might be, that's 1.8. That might be right here. So let me just dump. I got two of those. 24-180. So let me look down here. Oh yeah, those are nice actually. And that does fit. Let me get a close-up on that. So this 24-180 is in there. It's not too bad, but it might be a little bit too big. I can deal with a bit smaller, but I can't deal with too big. So let me just dump this. And I did see a 24-150, because you can carve the hole out, and you just have to make sure the base of the jewel is wide enough for the shaft. And I think this could work. It's pretty touchy though, because it doesn't give you a lot of material to burnish with, right? So if I grab the 24-150, I hope my friend I'm doing this for is listening, because he This is my last 24-150 jewel. So when in the future, if I ever need a 24-150, I'm going to call them up and say, hey, I need a 24-150. Where is it? So let me just put that down there. You know what? I think that is a bit too small. I think I'm going to go back to the 24-180. I think that was a better size than a 24-150. 24-180 might be what it is. So I'm just going to take that out and put it aside for a second. 24-180, that could be the right jewel size right there. We got two of those, which is nice. And I'm going to look in my other jewels to see if I have any more. So looking at this second set of jewels, I cannot find a 24 anything. I have a bunch of 26s in here, but no 24s in here. So I think I'll go with the 24-180. It looks like it fits. And again, it's got to fit over that jewel, the existing flat space of the jewel setting with enough diameter to create the burnishing material. And this does fit that way. So let me have one more look at it. And here's what that jewel looks like. It's got a little bit of an oil cup on the top. Pardon my fingernails, I play guitar and they're a little bit long, but I do play guitar, so that's why the fingernails are like that. A little bit of an oil cup on the top there, and the other side is absolutely flat. See if I can turn this around. Yeah, look at that. The other side is 100% perfectly flat. Can I get a reflection? Yeah, I can. There you go. That's a reflection. So what I'll ask my friend to do is take that jewel and then just put it over the pivot that he has, the existing pivot, and then we'll see whether that works. Now let me just take this jewel very carefully, and I'm going to put this on top of the existing setting. I'm trying to grab the setting while I'm doing this. So if I throw that on top there, you'll see how it fits. Like, it's hard to center it, but there you go. And you see how that fits, and there's material, there's leftover room on the side. If I were just to jog that over a bit, probably you'd see it. But there's leftover room on the side for the burnishing material, and that's what you want. So this is a good jewel. So this one should work. So I'll let my friend know I found a jewel, and if he has to make a jewel setting, he can make the setting for this watch, the jewel setting for this watch, and it should work perfectly. So that's it. So that's how you size a jewel. The thickness of it is really not that much in question, because I think the end shake will be fine. And you can change the end shake by actually, when you make the setting, you can make the setting a bit deeper, which moves the jewel away from the main shaft more, or you can make it a little bit thinner, but then you have to make sure the burnishing material is over the top, right? And as I said before, just put that down. If you look at these settings here, see if this will focus for me. Come on, focus is not just a shitty car, okay? Yeah, there we go. So these are gold settings, and it's on a bun special, I think. So gold settings, and so there's a little room on the top of the volcano there for the jewel to come out, but it's really aesthetics. So this is where the jewel is. So my friend's trying to source a jewel with a setting, but if he can't do that, then he's going to end up having to make the setting, which is always fun. So that's it for the video. So this is a 24-180. So let me just mark that down here. 24-180. And if you look at my measurements that I did before, you'll see that I was pretty damn close. I said 1.8 diameter wide, and I thought maybe 1.9 or whatever, but 1.8 seems like it fits, no problem. If there's an extra material left on there, it's not going to cause any problems with the functioning of the watch, as I said earlier. So that's how you size a setting. It's fun, more fun than a bag of weasels. So thanks for watching my channel. Keep watching. Please subscribe. Love lots of comments, so comment away on this particular video, and we'll go from there. I'm going to do a video on, at some point in time, I'm going to do a video on bead error and how to correct bead error. So I did make one years ago on this, but I'm going to try again. So that's it. I'm JD. If you need any watch work done, pocket watch work done, please get a hold of me at jdwatchservice@gmail.com. jdwatchservice@gmail.com. I've got one watch coming in right now, and then the bench will be empty, and I'll be able to do more work. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.